Hi friends, it's Belinda here from Be Making Joy, and today I wanted to talk to you about top-down knitting and separating for the body and the sleeves, like I did for the hometown hoodie, the Haytime cardigan, or this turnpike top. So now that the weather's cooler, I'm working on another hometown hoodie here, and that involves casting on at the neckline and working it down. And then as we reach the armpit point, we need to separate into two sleeves and a body. So that's what this video is going to be about, so let's get started. If you find this video helpful, please click the like button so that more people will be showing this video. And if you'd like to have one of these patterns, the link in the description box below. Hi, we're checking the fit to see before we go on to the next step how we fit, so we meet nicely around the bust. And if our raglan lines connect under the armpit nice and comfortably with room to move around, then we're long enough. But if it's not long enough, you can just make a few more rows without any further increasing. And so you've noticed I've still got my needles on. I've used interchangeable needles, so I was able to add extra cables to make it long enough to go around me. But you could put it on scrap yarn so that you've got room to maneuver while you try it on, because you want to make sure this is right before you move on to the next step of separating the sleeves and the body. So now I'm going to talk about how to separate your yoke to your sleeves and your body. So I still have mine on my gigantic interchangeable needle. If you had yours on scrap yarn for trying it on, you need to put it back onto your needles. And then you'll start with the right side facing you, and you will follow the instructions step by step. You'll knit the first, I'm making a medium, so I'll knit the first 48 stitches. I'll slip this stitch marker because I'm using it to mark my body when I continue, and I'll knit this next stitch. The yoke line is going with my body. Then I will take a stitch holder or scrap yarn and go through these next 60 whatever stitches it says and put them on your stitch holder or scrap yarn to set aside for the sleeve. And remove this stitch marker, knit the raglan line stitch, and remove and slip this marker, knit the back of the body, slip the marker, and knit the raglan line. I'm putting all the raglan lines on my body section. And then remove the marker, put these 68 whatever stitches onto your stitch marker or holder or scrap yarn. And then these raglan line gets knitted into your body to the end. So when you finish that, you'll have these sections off on this section off on a stitch marker, and these sections will be joined together to continue for your body. And the procedure is pretty much the same whether it's a cardigan or a pullover or any kind of top-down yoke shirt. You're knitting to the armhole, you're putting the sleeves on stitch holders, you're knitting across the back, you're putting the other sleeve on stitch holders and knitting back to your finishing point. And sometimes you're casting on extra stitches under the armpits, especially if it's a heavier yarn with less drape. So I'll show you that now. And there are many different alternatives to use for stitch holders. These are actual stitch holders, or a barber cord, or a scrap yarn, a crochet thread, anything to thread through those stitches that you're going to keep live but on hold for later. So we're going to knit to the first armhole marker. And now that we've reached the first arm sleeve marker, we need to put those sleeve stitches on a holder. And we could use a yarn. We would thread it onto a tapestry needle and we wind it through these stitches the same way. just keeping those stitches live and on hold for later. Now for this version, I'm going to cast on 4 more stitches for the underarm. And I'm going to turn. I prefer the cable cast on method. For my tension, I find that to be the most sturdy yet still stretchy enough to allow for movement. So let's cast on our, for my size, it's for my daughter's size, it's 4 stitches. And then back to the direction of the work with the right side facing me. I'm going to knit across the back body stitches. And make sure that gap is snug. How do you feel about that sound of the needles clanging together? I kind of like it. I use metal needles, so they make this clinking sound. But I imagine people around me wouldn't like it too much. Well, there, we've reached the other sleeve. We're going to put those on hold as well. So the pattern will specifically tell you how many stitches to knit and how many stitches to put on hold. Which, before I began, I went through and counted the stitches between the markers, so that I knew when I reached the marker, I was at the right spot. So that's why I'm not counting again. So being careful not to split the yarn as I do this. And there we go. So if I was uncertain, I would stop and count these stitches again. And now casting on my underarm stitches again. Oops. Four. Yep. So anyway, there we go. We're almost back to the beginning. And you can see I've got my body stitches on my needle and my sleeve stitches on the holders. So I'm going to just keep knitting the body, and then you go back and put these stitches back onto needles to knit sleeves. I personally will knit the body just a few more inches, and then I'll stop and go do the sleeve, because I don't like having all that extra material to flop around while I'm doing my sleeves. That's my own personal preference. So anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you'd like copies of my patterns, the link is in the description box. And thanks for watching and happy knitting!